Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. On Friday, March 18th, 2 days from now, Guyanese will have the chance for the first time in 22 years to participate as voters in local government elections. It is indeed a historic opportunity, and the APNU plus AFC government does deserve some credit for holding local government elections within 1 year of coming to office. On Plain Talk this evening, I have as my guest Mr. Mark Benschop, no stranger to politics and local government and national politics. In our country, Mark himself is on a campaign for mayor. Mark has been criticized and corrected that, well, we don't have a system of direct elections for mayor. So what is Mark on about? I think he will explain that. So, Mark, I want to welcome you to Plain Talk. You've been around for a long time. Do you see this as a pivotal moment in your career?
I guess it's a pivotal moment in everybody's career in terms of young people who want to get involved in politics. And the fact that I am now sitting as a guest on your show and to hear you utter those words that Mark Benschop has been around for a long time. I've been saying about politicians who have been around for a very, very, very long time and do not want to give that space up for others to partake in elections or to be part of the decision-making process. I believe that in answering your question, that this by itself is a very auspicious moment, like I've said, not just for me, but it's for every Guyanese. But I welcome it. For 15 years, I've been calling for the holding of local government elections. We saw exactly what happened with the previous regime being reluctant. And there were times when I thought that the then opposition party would have been pressuring the government more, the government then, to have these elections held. Lo and behold, they both came together and decided to call the elections off on several occasions.
Annually for 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
I want to start by asking you a development today where a Mr. Winston Harding was withdrawn as a candidate by the APNU plus AFC for constituency 13, East and West Rhineville.
Yeah, that's
here is a candidate for the governing coalition. What's the effect of the candidate being withdrawn?
Well, it's not like they didn't know. They knew of this. They knew of the allegation that's being leveled.
I would ask you not to repeat it on the program.
Yeah, they knew of the allegation. It was before the court. It was subsequently dismissed by a judge. And I'm surprised that the relevant minister that deals with that particular issue in terms of child protection and so forth and so on, saw that particular matter as a private family matter. This is kind of like deja vu with allegations leveled that the former president ill-treated his wife then, and when the then minister who held the very position that this current minister holds said that the matter between former President Bara Jagdeo and his wife was a private matter. In the opposition, those who are in government right now were totally against that. Now we're hearing the same thing.
Isn't that what we've been seeing in lots of cases? That when you're in government, you say one thing, when you're in opposition. In fact, it's happened to such an extent that people are talking about an exchange rather than a change.
Well, I see it thus far, unfortunately, as an exchange. We're seeing a lot of things happening, different side of the coin. With regards to the candidate, now no longer a candidate, I believe, no longer supported by APNU AFC, I think that's a good move that they've made to call and have that candidate withdraw.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's an APNU. He was part of that slate.
Yes.
Now, what happens? What happens to the APNU AFC in constituency 13 then?
That's it for them. They're only on the PR. They do not have a first past the post candidate at this point in time. So they would have had to write to GCOM, requesting GCOM to withdraw that person's name from the list. From
Of
the
course,
first
it's too
pass.
late now.
No, GCOM would have to do that.
No, but to replace him, I mean.
No, they can't. They cannot replace him.
Yes.
He has to be withdrawn, but not replaced.
Mark, this is. I've heard lots of complaints, and I must say, and I do accept blame. I don't like this present system of local government elections, where the political parties can take 50% of the seats under what they call a PR system, and then put their own people as individual candidates. It just doesn't sound to me like local government.
It doesn't sound like democracy, but this is what they're propagating. And again, I'm glad that you've mentioned in the beginning that this current government has to get some degree of, plus, some sort of plus in holding local government elections within the first year, as they have promised. But remember, the ABC countries were all behind this. There were other persons who were calling for elections and so forth. And so we give the government some kudos in getting this job done. Now, with regards to the system is so antiquated that it doesn't give the ordinary or the rank and file people, the residents of Georgetown or in any municipality, the opportunity to do what is democratic. And what I mean by that is people should have the right to elect their own mayor. Go in the voting booth, vote for your own mayor. Don't tell people vote on top for proportional representation, vote on the bottom for first past the post, and all these sort of things. It's very complicated, it's confusing, and I think this is why we may very well have a low voters turnout.
This system, where political parties have 50% practically of the guaranteed 50% of the control, is something that the WPA, one of the members of this coalition, has fought against. Is this the conflict and the confusion of coalition politics where you have to participate in something that is morally and psychologically antithetical to what you believe in?
Well, the WPA has been hypocritical in a lot of instances, and I'm not surprised that they sit there and they support this. They're in power right now. They're comfortable with that, and why criticize?
We'll get back to the elections. I need to talk to you, if you may, sir, about the Commission of Inquiry into the disturbances and deaths of 17 persons at the Camp Street prisons on March 3rd, about less than 2 weeks ago. You know, Mark, we all know, this movement in America, Black Lives Matter. Why is there those people who hold the perception that poor lives don't matter, that thing, nobody seems to be interested.
Or jail man life don't matter.
Yes.
Let's
well,
make
it probably means the same thing.
That's what it boils down to.
It probably means the same thing.
Yeah.
Rich people don't go to jail.
For the most part, they don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leona Helmsley said, no, rich people don't pay taxes. Mm-hmm. And she ended up, but she did end up 4 years in federal prison.
Yeah.
Why are the ordinary people not showing more interest in these 17 lives of people who are accused of crimes, who have been remanded to prison, but who have not been found guilty? Why is there such a nonchalance and indifference to this matter of 17 people, the highest number of deaths in any single incident in any prison in Guyana in its entire history?
Or probably in the Caribbean in its entire
Possibly.
history. Also, I can't recall.
Yeah,
of any-
Barbados had a fire, but
not
people didn't. The people didn't
Not,
die.
No, not.
That's correct.
And this is going to go down in history. Unfortunately, this kind of history we don't really need. And I sympathize with the relatives of those who would have lost their lives, and even those prisoners who are traumatized at this point in time, who may be watching this program. I want them to know that my heart is with them, and with their families as well. Now, there is this perception, Chris, that once you go through that jail gate, you're automatically guilty of a crime. Regardless of what that crime is, you're automatically guilty. That is the perception out there. And I wrote on my Facebook page that that perception is not necessarily reality, because there are
It's completely false.
Yeah, there are lots of folks in there who are not guilty of a crime, who have been framed of a crime, who have been trumped up charges and so forth, whether petty crime or whatever. And, at the end of the day, I think it's Dr. Jagan's book, The Western Trial. He himself spent a few days in prison, and he said during his time in prison that he has got to understand that there are more criminals outside of the prison system than they are inside.
I think Moses Bagwan, former WPA member, he made the same point after spending some time
Yeah.
in the Camp Street prison.
Mhm.
Now, he told a tale of, it's like Dante's hell.
It's beyond that. I've spent 5 years in that system, Chris. 5 years.
How did you
on-
survive, Mark?
I
How does
sur-
one survive that place?
The Camp Street prison, I've never gone to hell, and I don't want to go to hell based on how they describe hell, but Camp Street prison is like hell. And I say this because, and people oftentimes ask me, how did you survive a Camp Street prison?
I just asked you that.
Right? Yeah. How did you survive a Camp Street prison? And mind you, all of my 5+ years was spent in a division called the dungeon. It's like solitary confinement. The first 3 years of my imprisonment there, 3+ years of my imprisonment, I came out of my cell for about 15 to 20 minutes, and that's it. Back into my
15
cell.
to 20 minutes
Per day.
per day.
Yeah.
Well, I am learning that in the current system, people in the capital block, this is accused of murder,
Yeah.
they come out once a week.
The capital block is not like where I was, and I'm not trying to say that, where they are is better.
Who is worse than...
God,
yeah, this
no,
is
no,
not a
I-
race
what,
at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm saying is that they have an open space where all of them congregate. They play games, they chat, and
Once
so forth.
a week.
No, every day.
No, not now.
Okay,
Not now.
the capital block, right?
Yes.
The capital block.
They go to the cage, it's called.
Oh, they have cages now.
They
But
call it a
in
cage,
that
yes.
cage, there are several of them, not just one in a cage.
Yes, they play.
There's
yes.
several of them in that cage. Compared to where I was, called a dungeon, they locked you off, they seal you off in a cell all by yourself. You
What
don't
was it?
even
What
know.
was the size of that cell?
The size of the cell was probably 10 by 10.
What kind of lighting did it have?
They had a very bright bulb, and it's in your face all the time. You can't turn it off. If you turn it off, it's a violation of the Prison Act, Chapter 1101. You can get further punishment for that. You can have your meals or whatever taken away from you.
How many hours a day that light was on?
24 hours. But of course, I turned it off because I wasn't prepared to allow jail to get to me and the system to break me down. So I turned that light off whenever I felt the need to.
Did you complain?
Yes, I've complained, I've protested, and I have said that prisoners must be treated humanely, whether they're guilty of a crime or not.
A prisoner is not denied of his or her human rights because you're in prison.
Well, they feel that prisoners are denied of that rights. And when I felt that someone was trying to breach those rights of mine, I stood up and I spoke out against it. There is something I don't hear anyone is talking about, the Prison Act, which is Chapter 1101, the laws that governs the prison. Sometimes it's in contravention with our Constitution, right? Where the rights of prisoners are taken away to the point that you're stripped of human dignity. There are some prison officers, mind you, this is not where I'm going to sit and chastise all the prison officers, but they feel as though, you're a prisoner, you're not a human being. Prisoner, get in your cell. Prisoner this, get out of here. They treat you like that. And I feel that the time has come for prison officers, even though they themselves, a lot of them, are under stress. because it's not easy to work among or work around about 1,200 prisoners, some of which are waiting trial for a very long time, wanting a trial. You're away from your family. You can't see your kids. You can't see your wife. You can't see your girlfriend. You can't see anybody. And when you lock them away like that and they're not getting any form of justice, they're not getting an early trial, you know, the system seems to be against them. And then you're in there, and prison officers, some of them, mind you, treat you as though you're worse than a four-legged animal. Those are the things that happen within the prison walls. And prisoners, this is not to justify anything. I've been there for 5 years. I know what happens. People wait 6, 7 years for a trial. They don't get trial. They get to see their family, their loved ones, every 3 months. In my case, my son Ryan, good evening if you're listening, I got to see him every 3 months. That is according to the prison rules, right? People want to see their families. People want to hug their families. You can't hug your child if he or she visits you. You got to stay away in a cage and just say hi.
What was your feeling that morning of March the 3rd, daylight? 17 persons died in a single room.
Folks have asked, call me, how do I feel? I mean, regardless of what, they are prisoners, they are human beings, yes. A lot of them were not found guilty. A lot of them were accused of crimes, some very heinous crimes as well. It was very sad because I recall that kind of brought back memories to me of a situation in 2007 when we had a riot or a protest there, right there at the prison. Prisoners were complaining months prior to that about the treatment, the food. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, jail, people are in jail and they're eating nice and that's not true. They got something that's called a pan top. With just a little, they throw all sort of things in it. And then the tea is black. And then the porridge is black and all these sort of things. Ask me where the grocery goes. I would love to tell you on air where the grocery goes. But I tell you, majority of the groceries do not go for prisoners. But again, the public out there is of the belief that people have prisoners have it good. When in fact, Chris, in an area that is set for about 5 prisoners, you have about 25 to 30 prisoners. Some sleep on the ceiling, on the ceiling or whatever with hammocks. Some sleep next to the bathroom floor. All these things happen. Now, you have the prison system that's grossly understaffed. You have 1 and 2 prison officers have to deal with about 100 prisoners. And now these things have to be looked at in a holistic way and not just superficial that you say you're going to have a commission of inquiry and just to pacify the public, and then it's back to square one.
This is not to suggest that what you're doing in terms of campaigning for local government elections is not a very noble effort. But why haven't you, and tell me if I'm wrong, why haven't you made prison reform a sort of platform that you were prepared to champion since you came out of prison?
I did that when I wanted to have a seat in Parliament. That would have been something that I wanted to champion, and I continue to do so. The previous administration obviously would not have wanted anything to do with me with regards to that. There were times when through the Benschop Foundation that we would have donated books and computers and these things to the prison, even sewing machines for the women prisoners out there in Berbice. And the prison system, they had to basically just take the donations and mark no photographs because you know the people in government. I was told point blank. Under this administration, I reached out to the current Minister of Home Affairs,
Public Security
now, Mr. Ramjitan, and I say, hey, I know the prison system. I'd like to think I know the prison system inside out.
But if you don't, not many people do.
I'd like to work along in terms of reforming prisoners and so forth. I've given them hundreds of books. I've given them computers and all these sort of things.
And what was his reaction?
And basically, just, okay, donate the books, and that's it. But that's as far as it goes. The reason why I was reaching out to these people in high offices is because I understand the prison system, and I knew that the pot was boiling, and that at some point in time the pot was going to boil over. And it boiled over on the 3rd of March.
Did he suggest to you that he could make you a member of the visiting committee of the prison?
No, he hasn't suggested that at all. And I haven't asked him either. Neither am I going to ask. But I think that these guys ought to be smart enough to understand that when you're going to put people in position, or whatever positions, you put people who have some sort of experience, who have knowledge about certain things, and could properly advise about the situation. I'm not sure that they're prepared for that. Square pegs in wrong holes. That's what it is.
Let's get back to local government elections.
Josh, thank you so much.
Well, what's your platform?
Our platform is the transformation of the city to stamp out corruption, stamp out nepotism, restore our 15 constituencies from Agricola to Cummings Lodge. We want to restore hope in the people. We want to restore democracy, so to speak, at a grassroots level, where residents feel connected to those officials at City Hall. There's been a disconnection for years, for over 2 decades. We want to restore that.
You said the first point you make is you want to restore Georgetown, the city.
Well, to what it used to be, because
Isn't that already in progress? Let's call a spade a spade. Give Jack his jacket. Haven't we been seeing improvements in our city?
nobody's denying that. From the central government level, that has absolutely nothing to do with those officials at City Hall. It's the central government that got into office. The previous administration wrecked the city. There's no question about that. They neglected the city. With the help, of course, in law you would understand, contributory negligence by a lot of those officials at City Hall. Some of them are vying for a council seat still. They have sat there, they did absolutely nothing. They even cooperated with the previous regime. They even helped the previous regime to destroy the city. So if you have a city that is wrecked by a previous government and a new government comes in and take a little paint and paint up some wall and think, of course it's going to look good. And of course, yes, people are pleased that they get to see that the drains are being cleaned and so forth. But there's more to it than just cleaning the drains.
Do you think, Mark, in this campaign, there has been enough serious discussion on policy types of issues? Like, for example, is this city sustainable on the present levels of rates and taxes? Is the government of Guyana making its contribution that it's supposed to make under the Fiscal Transfers Act? Are you getting the support of the executive? Because after all, this is the seat of government. And therefore, they have as much of a stake in the city as the city councillors.
Yeah, through the...
have we been seeing that debate?
We haven't been hearing much about policies, but Team Benschop, we have been talking about policies. We have been talking about our plans. We have been talking about how we intend to manage the affairs of this city. Unfortunately, we haven't been hearing that much coming out of those vying for office, these very officials at City Hall who have contributed towards wrecking the city. We haven't heard anything about policies. All we've been hearing about them is, central government this and central government that. Chapter 2801 says, of course, there's a separation from central government to the local government level. And we of Team Benschop want to be able to govern through the municipal acts. We believe that we are going to govern on behalf of the people. However, we are not going to be antagonistic towards central government. We are going to say to central government, you have your part to play. You have your role to play. Play your role, but don't dictate to us what we should be doing as what is happening right now.
So Team Benschop is competing in all 15 constituencies?
15 across Georgetown.
And that Georgetown means from Eccles?
From
Agricola
to Cummings Lodge, yes.
how many councillors will you be? Is that 30?
No.
Two,
What we 15 for first past the post,
yes.
and 15 for the proportional
So that's 30.
representation. 30. Yeah. Saving except in constituency number 4, I believe, our candidate at the last minute migrated. So we do not have a first past the post candidate in constituency number 4, I believe. That's the Bel Air area.
So you're competing as within the PR as well as the
First past the post. We have 15 candidates on the PR and 14 candidates at the first past the post.
How competitive has this campaign been?
It's been very competitive, but we have been able to talk about our plans, talk about the issues, and talk to people directly. We have been in every constituency, not necessarily at every home, but we have been around in all of the constituencies talking about our plans. We haven't been focusing on other groups and other political parties. We haven't been focusing on any mudslinging. We have merely been talking about our plans and telling the people that we want Georgetown, we want the residents of Georgetown to be able to breathe again. And in doing so, that they should not allow central government to take control of the municipality. Allow groups like Team Benschop to take over the management of City Hall. And that is what we're saying. Central government they have their part to play. Give us our role so that we can play that role regardless of political affiliation, regardless of ethnicity, and let us govern this city how it ought to govern and put the millions of dollars back into your communities.
Now, one of the bees in my bonnet has been the state using public resources to campaign in national elections. The PPPC did that for years.
And this current government complained about that.
And
we all complained about that. Busing people in, cane cutter trucks going in, dozens of cane cutter trucks, all these sort of things. We've complained about that.
I am saying, President, members of Parliament, get involving in what the PPP used to call cabinet outreach. This government is doing the same thing. Why have the smaller entities competing? Why have the opposition entities been complaining about this misuse of state resources for partisan political purposes?
Well, I don't know why they haven't been complaining, but it is becoming more and more obvious. We saw what happened in Bartica, we saw what happened in Linden, we saw what happened in Rose Hall Town, and we're seeing what's happening right here in Georgetown. Even as we speak, there's a supposed rally, in constituency number 14, where I am the first past the post candidate. At that rally, you have senior officials of this government. I'm not sure if the president is there, but he is slated to speak there. The prime minister is slated to speak there as well. And I'm sure they're going there with state resources to campaign and these sort of things. And the very things we complained about when all of them were in the opposition, a lot of them who are now in government were very quiet. They weren't speaking about much. But the few who spoke out against these very things that we see happening right now.
This must make you feel rather special that the president and the prime minister and maybe other ministers of the government would want to be speaking at an event so as to compete and outperform you.
Well, that's the intention, and I'd like to call on residents of constituency number 14 to put politics aside. If you would have voted for the APNU AFC for the national level, that's okay. They're in control, they're in government right now. Nothing is wrong with you walking away from that pattern of voting and vote for me on Friday, vote for Team Benschop on Friday to take over the management of the local government affairs. We are going to work for you, and that's what it is. And for the president and the prime minister and others, well, I'm not sure if they turned up, I'm not sure, but the president was slated to speak tonight at that rally in constituency number 14. it's really, really unfair. And a lot of people are saying that they are disappointed that the government has taken this position.
Well, this is certainly not what lots of us assisted in supporting this government in the May elections of last year. You, as I said earlier, have been criticized for misleading people about Benschop for mayor.
Yeah.
These elections is not about the mayor. The mayor is in fact elected at the meeting of councillors. Is that correct?
True. Yeah.
So why are you misleading people, or is it a kind of label, is a strategy?
I am not misleading people. That question was asked by the former U.S. ambassador, Brent Hart, and in a conversation he asked me, he says, Mark, some folks are concerned, some folks meaning at GCOM, that there is no such thing as running for mayor. As I've said to the ambassador then, I said, you know, Mr. Ambassador, it is true. There is no such thing, as I'm saying to you now, Chris, that it is true. There is no such thing as running for mayor, right? But that is something that I've been calling for the past 15 years. Let us have that. Now that there is no such thing where people are being denied that right to vote directly for a mayor, this is what Team Benschop has done in terms of part of our strategy. The 15 PR candidates that we have, the 14 first past the post candidates that we have, we are saying to residents of Georgetown, a vote for any of those candidates is automatically a vote to have me elected as the next mayor around the horseshoe table. That's all we're saying. I am a candidate for councillor for constituency number 14. But persons walk into the voting booth and they vote for all of our first past the post candidate. If, for example, we end up now with 17 or 20 seats, automatically those 20 persons will be voting for Mark Benschop as the next mayor. That is all we're saying. It's our strategy. GCOM has approved that. They have approved our symbol, Mark Benschop for mayor. They saw nothing wrong with that. And the people who approved our symbol, Mark Benschop for mayor, are PNC people and PPP people occupying the commissioner seats at GCOM. So I don't know why that's a major issue. Instead of these groups and parties talking about their plans, talking about what they have, based on their objectives and so forth for the city, they're not. They're just focusing, oh, Team Benschop this, oh, Mark Benschop is misleading people. Oh, come on. We're not. We're just being transparent because, Chris, the other groups know, for example, the major parties, they know who their mayoral candidate is or deputy mayor candidate is. Why not be transparent? Tell the people. Team Benschop has taken this step further. We are democratic. We are transparent. We are telling the people that I will be or I am the mayoral choice for our group. Why can't the others do that?
Mark, one of the concerns people have is the absence of codes of conduct for public officials. A city official is as much a public official as a member of parliament or some such person. Does Team Benschop have a code of conduct for its own members, assuming they become councillors?
We are not afraid of code of conduct. We believe that there should be a code of conduct, and we believe that the time has come for that. Once we are in City Hall, we take over the management of the city affairs. We will be calling for that. I don't have a problem with that, and I don't believe any of our candidates have a problem with that. In fact, it is something that our campaign manager, Ronson Gray, has been talking about, and I believe that we should push that. It's unfortunate that we don't have that, either the local or the national level.
Well, the government has, in fact, published, several months ago, they published a draft code of conduct.
That was a draft, and it remains a draft, even after several months ago.
The Prime Minister said recently they are awaiting further submissions.
Yeah, the Prime Minister has said a lot of things.
Assuming, Mark, your Team Benschop doesn't get 16 councillors on the members on the city council. Would you be engaging in horse trading
You mean
and
like
making mayorship for Mark Benschop the pivotal thing?
Let me say this to you. In politics, these things do happen, and Team Benchcap doesn't intend to play politics. But what we want to do is whatever decision we make in terms of coalescing with whomever or whatever group that it is, it would be in the interest of the residents of Georgetown. You talk about horse.
No, yes, I'm talking about
Yeah.
for this position of
Yeah.
because obviously you could have the PPP on one side, you could have several individuals on the first past the post system. No one with a commanding with a majority. You've got to negotiate. You've got to compromise. Horse trade.
Well, we believe, based on the sentiments being expressed on the ground, that Team Benchcap will walk away with this majority.
Just assume. But let me be
You wanna be
satisfy my
devil's
pessimism. Satisfy my pessimism.
It's kind of like a scenario that happened in 1997 when Mr. Hamilton Green, and a lot of people, I've been telling people this, that Hamilton Green has been a minority.
It was 94.
97, a
No,
minority
94.
mayor, a minority mayor with 12 seats. The council has 30 seats, but Hamilton Green has been a minority mayor with 12 seats that he won in 1994. In 1997, the PNC and the PPP came together. They voted Hamilton Green out as mayor in 1997. Mind you, the PNC teamed up with the PPP to kick out Hamilton Green. When they voted, the PPP had 8 seats, the PNC 10, Hammy 12. All of the PNC's 10 seats were in favor of Rondell Jordan to be the next mayor. All of the 8 PPP seats were in favor of the PNC's candidate. In return, they put Philomena Sahoy Shuri as the deputy mayor. The PNC and the PPP had a deal. Hamilton Green was kicked to the curb. After 1 year, the PNC and the PPP couldn't make political love anymore, and so they all voted for themselves. 8 voted for the PPP, 10 voted for PNC, and 12 voted for Hamilton Green. That is how Hamilton Green remained the mayor for 20 years. Now, if we have such a scenario where Team Benchcap has, let's say, 14 seats, and that is not the majority, and but yet that is the majority, but not sufficient to have a real majority in order to command the mayorship. You have to vote for that now. Now, if all of Team Benchcap's 14 candidates vote for me to be the mayor, all of the other candidates vote for their own people, well, then there would be no need for horse trading around the horseshoe table. It is as straight as that. But people must remember what happened in 1997 when the PNC joined up with the PPP to kick Hamilton Green out.
You mentioned the word coalesce just now. Are you prepared to coalesce with the APNU plus AFC or with the PPP?
We are prepared to work in the interest of the people of Georgetown. We are prepared to, on the night of February 18, to see the result says March 18, to see the result says that Team Benchcap has won by a majority. Whatever happens thereafter, we will work in the best interest of all the residents of Georgetown.
Your organization carries your name.
Benchcap, yeah.
Lots of people do not know even the leadership level of Team Benchop. Why is that?
The Benchcap Foundation was formed not so long after I was released from prison, and it has been running as the Benchcap Foundation for several years now, working in depressed communities and so forth, as the Benchcap Foundation, a private entity.
Yes. I'm still talking about the leadership of people don't know.
I am the head of the Benchcap Foundation.
No, what about your other persons?
It is
how
not.
much?
It is not an NGO. It's not a registered NGO that requires these sort of things. I am the head of Benschop Foundation.
No, it's Team Benschop. Is
Oh, you're talking about Team Benschop or
That's
the
what I said.
Benschop
Team-
Foundation?
No, I said Team.
Oh,
Sorry
you
if
did
I
say.
didn't.
I'm talking about the Benschop
No, I'm
Foundation
no,
because
Team-
you know some people want to know how you get the money and how you this
No,
and
no,
how
no,
you
no,
that.
no, no.
Oh, I thought you were referring to
no,
that.
no, no, not
My
at all.
my apologies. Yeah.
Team Benschop.
Team Benschop.
And the leadership and the various candidates.
The guy, a lot of people on social media, if you go, we're very active. All of our candidates are very active. Even while coming to your station here, your program, we have Brian McIntosh in Constituency 5. We have Mr. Jamil Razul in Constituency 2. We have Sylvester McAllister in Constituency number 13. We have David Alicock in Constituency 10. We have Royston Alkins in constituency number 12, the largest constituency. These people have been very active. In constituency 1, we have Ms. Sopatra Abraham. So these folks have been very active. We are on social media, we are in the newspapers, we are on television program. We have on another channel a television program that has been on for about 2 months now. So the public has been well informed in terms of who our people, candidates are and what Team Benschop is about. I am working under someone by the name of Ronson Gray. He is our campaign manager. He calls the shot. A competent young man. We have as leader of our list the person or persons who will be deciding who goes into the city council. Is the leader of our list is Miss Salima Bacchus Hines. The deputy leader of our list is Miss Malika Dowden. Those are the two persons. So basically, I am the guy that hits the streets, that get the things done, do some of the interviews, but we have a strong, competent team behind us. I don't know how you missed that, Mr. Christopher Ram. How did you miss that?
Maybe I'm not part of that social media generation.
My gosh, you have to become part of it. You missed it by a mile.
I probably did.
I'm sorry that you did.
In terms of gender balance, age balance, ethnic balance, how does Team Benschop fare?
We're the most diverse. We have a lot of females. They are on the PR list. We have, I personally would have wanted to have more females on the first past the post list. But I promise our females listening to this program here tonight, the females listening to this program tonight, that we are going to ensure that there is gender balance and ethnic balance within our councillors, the seats occupied by Team Benschop. We believe in that. We strongly believe in that. That is why we say, and we know that we are the most diverse group running in this local government elections. We want that to reflect Georgetown. That is why we say, put politics aside, put ethnicity aside, and vote for Team Benschop, and let us hold hands and work together to develop this beautiful city.
Is it just a starry-eyed notion about putting politics aside when you have the APNU plus AFC machinery and you have the PPPC machinery? They're not putting politics aside.
They're political parties. So they are political parties that have been around for donkey years. So it's difficult for them to put politics aside. We now, Team Benschop, we do have a lot of new, fresh faces and so forth, young people especially, who don't want to play this sort of old-time petty politics. And so we have no other choice now, this tit-for-tat politics. Our campaign manager and most of our young people don't want to go that route. Right? So we are not going to be going that route. We are not going to be playing politics. What we are going to be doing is ensuring that the people get what they deserve. $2.1 billion in terms of the budget. That's what people want. That's what we have to do to ensure that the people get their monies. In terms of the rates and the collection right now, it's under 50%. We have to go in there and work so that we can raise that to about 75-80%. So in order for the people to get whatever they want, roads, proper roads in Sophia, lights all over the place, whether it's Kitty, whether it's Cummings Lodge, whether it's Agricola, wherever. Those are the things that we have to talk about. And we do not intend to play politics with the lives of citizens or residents of Georgetown. We do not intend to play politics with the lives of young people by having prominent people taking over their playground and building houses and all these sort of things. We are not going to be doing that. We are going in there as a bunch of individuals who are concerned, who are passionate about rebuilding this city, passionate about working on behalf of people, not going in there and driving a $30 million vehicle, of which we were made to understand that City Hall recently bought a $30 million vehicle, not to go and get a plot of land and say we want it for municipal workers and these sort of things. Our job is to take care of the people. And that is what we will do. We want residents of Georgetown to hold us accountable. Hold me as your next mayor accountable. We don't want to give out millions of dollars of contracts to my family members or friends or so forth. We want this thing to be distributed equally across the board.
But Mark, everybody says that when they want to be elected. What guarantees, and I know how much guarantee can one give, or where is that reassurance to the people that this time it's different? Guyanese have been stung by disappointments.
That is true, and I appreciate the question, and that is what some people have been asking. Mark, these ideas are great for Team Benschop, what Team Benschop is talking about. Lovely ideas, but what makes you guys think? The very question that you've asked. Judge me based on my track record of standing up and working for people, defending people's rights and so forth. Chris, you recall that dumb site when we were there. You were there. You had a handkerchief. Nobody at City Hall wanted to do anything. We did that. We were there. We were at the dump site. Fortunately for you, you left. And then we got locked up, but you were the next guy that was supposed to be in that lockup with us. I don't know how you would have made out in that lockup, because Freddie couldn't make it in the lockup. Freddie cried for 3 days straight, right? You ran away and left us. But that is what I'm talking about.
I think I had an appointment that afternoon.
Yeah, but you ran. True. And I recall that you asked a question, and I brought it up the other day. I was drinking a Coca-Cola.
And I do believe, and I'm not promoting pro bono, but I do believe I appeared in court in that matter as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to tell the magistrate you were the guy that ran away. But the police was actually looking for you. No, but seriously, I am passionate about things. I'm not an opportunist. I'm not a guy who is corrupt, who take bribe and all these sort of things. I probably could have been a rich guy, probably richer than Donald Trump, hugely rich.
We'd have Benschop Towers then.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But Mark, on a serious note, we talk about these economic things, but Georgetown, like everywhere else in Guyana, has serious social problems.
Sure.
The homelessness, the poverty, the drug addiction, the single parent. These are all people living in your constituency.
Yeah.
How do you deal with issues like those?
Running the Benschop Foundation for so many years is part of it's why I've started the Benschop Foundation, because I'm very passionate about these things. And sometimes I do break down, especially when I was in Sophia the other day and I saw the conditions under which people have to live. And I've said to myself, no way in a country like ours with all the bauxite and the gold, instead of these things being smuggled out and shipped out of the country, why can't we develop our country? Why is it that the people in Sophia have to live like that? Why is it that the people in Tiger Bay or other places have to live like that? I want to be able to contribute. And to contribute from a level where I have access to the resources, the state resources, to do things, to work for the people, instead of the millions of dollars going into the pockets of friends and family members of these city officials. I want to, through my team, to be able to change that, Chris, to make a difference. To go into Sophia, they must have proper roads, proper lights, proper security. And we're talking about security from the city constable's level. Instead of those constables there shaking down hard-working vendors and market people, we want to create outposts around these constituencies and put those constables out there to work, to secure our streets, to secure our communities. These are things that I want to do. And through Team Benschop, we want to do. And people must be able to judge us and to know that I'm asking them that you give us your vote, you give us your support for the next 3 years. Hold us accountable. Hold me accountable as your next mayor. The very day we are elected, the very day I am elected around the horseshoe table as your next mayor, I am getting out there in the streets to work for you. Our candidates are getting out there to work for you. That is the difference. We are not going to tolerate business as usual. Enough is enough.
One of the big problems this country, the city has faced is that tension, that conflict, that adversarial relationship between the local government, in this case the city council, and the central government. How do you plan dealing with that?
We plan on dealing with that. We're not going into City Hall to be antagonistic towards central government. In fact, we know central government has its role to play. We want central government to play its role. We're not going to deny central government from playing that role. But what we are not going to allow is central government stamping its authority on us and dictating how we should govern the municipality. And so once we have that understanding, we all can work together. Like I've said, that is what Team Benschop wants to do. We're not going in there as anti-government. We want to work with the government in the best interest of all the residents of Georgetown. We are prepared to work with the government in the best interest of all the government, but we are not going to be dictated. That's all we're saying. So for those of you who are coalition supporters, who do not want to go out and vote because maybe you're upset about a few things and so forth, we ask that you come out and vote for us. Give Team Benschop that chance. Let us work for you. The residents of South Rumville Park, Rossville, Roxanne Burnham Gardens, come on out on Friday, the 18th of March, and vote for Team Benschop. Vote for me in that constituency. Vote for all of our candidates in the respective constituencies. Constituency number 5, heavily contested. Our guy is Brian McIntosh. He is known as a fighter, a real fighter. Go out and vote for Brian McIntosh. He is the guy that's going to make a difference. And all of our candidates are strong candidates. Unlike probably, for example, if you vote for candidates that are probably connected to the government, they're merely going to be puppets of the government. They cannot be candidates. They cannot be strong on their own to make decisions. And therein lies the problem. Why would you want to vote for puppets? Vote for Team Benschop.
I think when you finish, you have to pay this program for this exposure you're getting, Mark.
Well, I thank you so much. And deep down in my heart, Chris, we have been on the battlefield. We have been out there fighting over the years. I want to take this opportunity to thank you and to congratulate you for that. But no, I know that.
Forget that. Let me
having said all of that and leading up to, I suspect deep down in my heart that at the end of this program, you will be endorsing Team Benschop. Why not?
I have taken a position not to endorse, but I do support you.
Thank
Mark.
you.
I do support you.
Thank you so much.
Do you think Guyana is ready for local government elections?
We have it now. We have to make sure that it's too late to think whether we are ready for it or not. Once it is done now, we have 3 years to get it fixed. We have 3 years to get it fixed properly, so that the next time around, there will be no confusion. Right now, people are confused. How do we vote? Who do we vote for? Where do we vote? And at times, I get the impression that maybe there's some sort of diabolical conspiracy. Millions of dollars at GCOM. Only now people are being informed. I don't know. Majority of our time, Chris, Team Benschop's time, is we have to educate people about the system as opposed to talking about our plans.
Which is the work which you would expect the election regulators to be doing.
You bet, yeah.
Another paradox, and I don't take credit for raising this. GCOM is made up only of political parties for national election purposes mainly.
For elections purposes.
Well, not for
Whether
local
national,
government.
no, for elections purposes.
Do you get representation? Do all those individuals
They
have
do not
say?
give. They do
That's
not
what I
give
mean.
us
That's what I
any
mean.
form of
It's
representation.
purely for those.
Like, for example, when we submitted our symbol for approval, Team Benschop for mayor, we were like, gosh, is the PNC or the PPP? They're the ones who have to approve, and they have an interest in the elections.
What
too.
we have is a GCOM where you have 3 persons from the government, 3 persons from the opposition, and a chairman who is drawn from a list of 6 persons.
Supposed to be from the party that you support too, WPA.
I still support the WPA, Mark.
Okay. But he is
I
supposed to be a
support
sympathizer.
I
of the
support the WPA because of the Rodneyite principles of that party. It still is a working class party. And we started this program by talking about Poor Lives Matter. And, you know, that's a copy of what we have in the States. Black Lives Matter. In this case,
Poor Lives Matter.
because there were a number of Indians as well.
You mean the prisoners?
In the prisoners.
Oh yeah, lots of. But in prison, the prison environment, there is no Indian or African or Portuguese.
It's a different kind of socialization,
Mati prisoner, man. And I say good evening to my Mati prisoner. Now, I say this, when I was there, you asked how I survived. I read Long Walk to Freedom, written
Mandela.
by Mr. Mandela. And I recall it brought me back to my meeting with Mr. Mandela in 1994, right? But I never took the time to read his book as often as I did when I was in prison. There was this part where Mr. Mandela wrote, he said he spent 3 nights in solitary confinement and he couldn't take it any longer. I would have already spent over 1 year in what I consider, or lots of people consider, solitary confinement, right? And those are the little things that help to keep me strong. Those prisoners right there, yes, they're prisoners. They're human beings. They deserve better treatment. If they're convicted, let them serve their time for the crime
But
committed.
let them be given a fair trial in a speedy way.
Precisely. I hope this commission, though, that they're not going to have lawyers and other people representing the state getting millions of dollars, the very thing we criticized the previous regime. I hope this is not the direction that we're heading. I hope not.
The Bar Association is not representing the state. Let me make that clear.
No, but you guys are representing the prisoners.
We're representing the public interest.
Public interest, and I commend you guys for that, Chris.
You know, you mentioned Mr. Mandela's book. I think it's one of the greatest stories.
Yeah.
It's the kind of book, and I really am commending this to viewers. Go out there, get a copy of Long Walk to Freedom.
Yeah.
When I reached the last page of that book, I felt sad. I wanted to read more.
Yeah.
Mandela must be one of the greatest human beings to have.
And
Wow.
it was a pleasure. I really, really appreciate and I'll cherish the moment that I've met Mr. Mandela. But I tell you what though, thank you so much for your time. I recall you talked
Even though
about,
you accuse me of running and all that, but that's all right.
you talked about Mandela. A particular lawyer who holds a very senior position visited me at the prison. Even Mr. Granger visited me in the prison along with his members of the Discipline Service Commission. I don't know what happened. That's when Mr. Jagdeo took Mr. President Hoyt on as part of the Discipline Service Commission.
Yes.
So it dates back from there that not much was done, not much was implemented to reform the prison system. But a senior government official who was my lawyer then told me, what you want, what you worrying with your freedom, go back in your cell and lie down, man. Mandela spent 28 years in jail. Those things can be hurtful, you know, especially to a prisoner.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
callous. But
Yep.
we're seeing it playing out now.
Yeah.
Mark, let me wish you and Team Benschop, and indeed every person who is offering themselves up for elections, good luck. I
Thank
wish
you.
you well. We'll hold you to all the noble and idealistic promises and commitments you make tonight.
I promise to get it done as your next mayor. I thank persons who are going out to vote for Team Benschop. Vote for us. It's the only party, it's the only group that will make a difference in this city. The others are just pomposetting themselves. God bless you.
Operators and viewers, thank you. Good night. See you next week.